beat by 36, and I think being down by 42. And then 2 nights after that to play a Clippers team without Kawhi, and you get beat 124-101. And I believe in that game, you're down by 30 or so at various points. Is there any way to justify what we've seen in these past 2 games, even with Karl not playing?
There is no way to justify the performance of the last 2 games. Let's not forget that Anthony Davis didn't play on Sunday. So you can talk all you want about Karl-Anthony Towns not playing. The Lakers were down Davis. The Clippers last night were down Kawhi Leonard. That being said, I can argue that the Lakers and the Clippers are the 2 best teams in the league. That the schedule is going to ease up here, and it will as soon as Friday night when they play the winless Washington Wizards. I do think Cat is that much of a difference maker, that both games would have been a lot more competitive, that he is their alpha. You can debate all you want about D'Angelo Russell being a shot maker, a shot creator. D'Angelo Russell doesn't make his teammates better. The defense still isn't there. D'Angelo Russell is not a 1A on any even, average team, let alone good team. In fact, I think D'Angelo Russell is more like the 3rd or 4th best player on a good team. So the Wolves still have all sorts of roster work to do. Yeah. Or just hope that Anthony Edwards keeps getting better and better, and he can eventually trump Russell, where Russell doesn't need to be that second star, because I don't see it with D'Lo as a second star. I also think Josh Okogie's perimeter defense last night was missed. You look at all the 3-point shots that the Clippers made. But yeah, I mean, last night, post-game, Ryan Saunders is talking about, guys on defense were switching when they weren't supposed to switch. Yeah. I saw Ryan light up Naz Reid at one point. It's very rare, at least in a public setting, to see Ryan, get that upset. Now, I've said for a while, he has to coach these guys harder, has to hold them accountable for the Wolves to take any sort of step this year. But I wasn't expecting to see it, 4 games in, where we're right there on the sidelines. He is just lighting up a player. Ricky Rubio post-game, Judd, did you see his quotes?
Yes, he definitely lit up his teammates.
I mean, he said they are worse than 2-2. So he was asked about, hey, tough stretch here, 4-game stretch to start the season. He said they're worse than 2-2, which I understand where he's coming from, because in many ways they were very fortunate to win the opener against Detroit. And it's just unfortunate because, we see right now the Warriors don't look all that great. Ja Morant of the Grizzlies is out a minimum of 3 weeks, potentially 5 weeks, maybe more. Why not try to stockpile some wins right now? Maybe not in LA, but in the next few weeks, try to stockpile some wins to create some separation, because I still struggle, Judd, to come up with their path where they are in the top 10. That means 5 teams in the West. Last time I checked, 15 teams in the West.
Yep.
Who are the 5 teams that don't make the playoffs? Really, who are the 5? Sacramento looks pretty good right now. And I don't want to fall in the trap of 4-game sample size, because last time I checked, the Wolves started last year. Weren't they 13-8 through 21 games?
Yes, they were. They got to a good start.
They did, and you froze briefly, so hopefully you still have me okay.
Yep.
But yeah, the Wolves got off to a really good start last year, then had multiple double-digit losing streaks. So I'm well aware of what could still happen, but this is a 72, not an 82-game season, so there's a little bit more of the sprint factor, to find a path to that top 10. So now is the time to gain some victories, or at least be competitive, show something on tape. And we don't know when Cat will be back. I don't think he's back as soon as next week, Judd. It still might be a couple weeks. I think he's back at some point in January. Same with Okogie. I think there's a better chance it's more 7 to 10 to 14 to 18 days versus Okogie being back as soon as Friday. So they are going to have to figure it out. Personally, what I would do, I would bring back Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. In fact, I would have brought him back on Monday morning. They have the open roster spot, but they just don't want to do it right now.
And why not?
They want the flexibility. They're pretty up against the luxury tax line, where if you brought back Rondae, you have very little wiggle room. But to me, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is good enough right now to be their starting power forward.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's not Juancho Hernan-Gomez. Juancho Hernan-Gomez looks horrible.
Yes.
right now. And I'll give him some time. He missed the bubble because he was filming that movie, which he committed to before he knew the dates of the bubble. So I'm not mad at Juancho, but he looks out of shape. His shot looks off. It looks like and Jim Peterson was talking about this on the telecast last night, that his mechanics just look off. And if he's not making shots, it's not like you have Hernan Gomez out there for his excellent defense or his energy.
Yep.
I mean, you have him out there because he can make some shots. So if he can't make shots, he's of no value to you. So right now, Rondé Hollis Jefferson is better than any power forward they have on their roster. Thankfully, Jared Vanderbilt, showed some progress last night. I'm okay if Vanderbilt gets some minutes on Friday.
Is he going to play more now? Because, I mean, Jake's been, for the most part, a mess. To your point, Juancho's been a mess. Right now, that power forward spot is nothing. Like, it's just this, they're trying different guys. At least Jared's got length. He's got, athletic ability. They just need some type of spark from there, and they don't have that. And you're exactly right. I mean, Hernan Gomez looks absolutely lost, and he looks awful. And the other problem with him too, Dukes, I think, is when he does get in, he won't stop trying to get out of a shooting slump, even though he can't shoot right now. It's maddening to watch.
Which, you know what? I mean, that's why he is in the game. So I guess I'm not upset that he's trying to find his shooting touch. But if he's not in peak basketball shape, and you need your legs, clearly, when shooting from long distance, especially, if he doesn't have his legs right now, there is something to be said about stop shooting. But yeah, he likes to have a quick trigger. I do think it's fluid, the lineup, Judd. So yes, can I see a scenario where Vanderbilt gets meaningful minutes, not garbage time minutes, as soon as Friday? Yes, I can see that possibility where Ryan is going to tinker with this thing, try to figure this thing out until Cat and Okogie can get back. So yes, to me, it makes logical sense that Jared Vanderbilt will get some minutes on Friday night. Jake Lamy even told us pregame yesterday that he's no longer playing the 4, that he's going to be
cut out there for a second, Doogie.
No, he's good. Hey, Dukes, what's up with possibly Jaden McDaniels maybe getting into the rotation? I know he was a rookie. He had a kind of this weird up and down year at Washington where he was like a high-level high school recruit. He got in some foul trouble. I know he kind of lost his head a little bit. But is there any way that he gets into the rotation somewhere?
Declan, I would be surprised. I saw you tweet our mutual friend Dane Moore last night that question. So you must be a big Jaden McDaniels fan. I'm with Dane that right now Jaden McDaniels is only earning minutes in garbage time. He still has a long way to go. There is enough potential there. He was a top 10 recruit coming out of high school, so there's a lot to like. He had some really, really nice games for Washington. And then at the end of the year, he was coming off their bench. He led the Pac-12 in technical fouls, so there's some attitude issues potentially there. But at pick 28, I love the pick. I think there's enough there for the future. But right now, with the obvious goal of cracking the top 10, Glenn Taylor's on the record saying that. Jake Layman is on the record. You talk to others with the organization, on background, they will tell you that the expectation this year is a top 10 seed. I don't see where McDaniels factors into the rotation when that is the goal.
Top 10 pick, Dukes. Top 10 pick.
Well, if they get a top 10 pick, it better be top 3. Otherwise, they don't have their pick, Judd.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
It's still a trade I would have made. Wiggins and the 2021 first, top 3 protected for D'Angelo. And obviously there were other parts, but those were the 3 big pieces, right? Russell here, Wiggins out, and the first round pick out. But I can tell you, across the league, it was 50-50. I mean, I canvassed a bunch of people. A lot of people said what I just said about D'Angelo, that he doesn't make his teammates better, that look at D'Angelo's history. Are you really going anywhere if D'Angelo is one of your 2 best players? He's compensated like he needs to be one of your 2 best players. And he's an elite shot maker, but does he make his teammates better? Does he play defense?
Yep.
And then if you can get the Wolves 2021 first-round pick, hey, why not? Plus, a lot of people said if Wiggins just gets a change of scenery, maybe he'll show a pulse. He did last night. Wiggins was off the charts last night for Golden State in their win in Detroit. But those other games, Wiggins was horrendous. I mean, that's the Wiggins that we know, right? That he flashes. Think about those games in Oklahoma City. Wiggins would flash. Then all of a sudden, for 4 or 5 straight games, he'd have 2 rebounds. He'd be shooting 28% from the field. So we saw that Andrew Wiggins many, many times. But I'm just telling you, across the league, like it was 50-50 on who won that trade. I think a lot of Wolves fans think, of course the Wolves won that trade. It's D'Angelo Russell. But I can just tell you, league people who really know what the hell they're talking about, will tell you that was about a 50-50, that was not a clear win for the Wolves.
Hey, Dukes, how long do you think it's going to take for Gerson and the Wolves as a whole to make a judgment on if Ryan is the right guy? Because he's still so young, but he is not new now to the job. And to circle back to your point, which I think is the best point, does he have, like, the problem with these last two games is that there's come a point in time in both the Lakers and Clippers loss where pride has gone out the window, and they basically, as Saunders said, they start to switch on guys they're not supposed to. As Ricky said, they, aren't playing with, they look like they're selfish. If you put all of that together, at what point in time can we decide, because these guys aren't all young now, Cat's into what, year 5 or 6, D'Angelo Russell, the same thing. So we're going to have to decide here. When do you think we can decide if Ryan is going to be the right guy to push the buttons with these players? Because I do fear the friend factor is going to become an issue. And once you've got that, I don't know that you can go back and undress guys verbally and that they care. Like, that's Tibbs was over the top, obviously, but I think that there's a happy medium here where we're going to get to a point where if, Cat and D'Angelo say, it's Ryan, that's fine, that becomes a real problem to me.
That's part of the equation. The number of times I've done this segment with you, Judd, where I've talked about not only is it a big year for Karl-Anthony Towns, but it's a big year for the Wolves. It's a big year for many others with the Wolves, including Ryan Saunders. Like, I think we give him the full season. Let's make a determination after this season. But I think at that point, we can draw some firm conclusions. This is assuming that he's got relative health, that Cat is able to come back in January at some point, that Okogie is back at some point, because I don't think it's fair to evaluate Ryan if he doesn't have his full complement, or at least, if he's missing 2 or 3 guys from his main 7 or 8 guy core, I don't think it's fair to pass strong judgment. So he needs to have his guys back. But I think at the end of the year, we can draw some hardcore conclusions. And I would also tell you, Judd, that, Ryan's my guy, but I don't know many coaches that would survive double-digit losing streaks like Ryan did last year. I mean, they had 2 different double-digit losing streaks.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is for a coach to survive something like that? Now, the roster was ever-changing. Heck, it'll still change here at some point. Like, Rosas is working on trying to get a power forward in here. Like, he's still talking trade. It's not like his phone is off the hook right now. He's making calls. He's sending text messages. He's trying. So at some point, you would think, with as aggressive as he is, that eventually they'll find some power forward to bring in here. So the roster is still going to change. That being said, yeah, I think it's fair that we formulate really strong opinions about Ryan after this season. But I'm not there yet. Give me the full season to evaluate him.
Is Jarrett Culver's shot fixed, which we thought we saw against the Jazz on Saturday, or is Jarrett Culver's shot still broke, which we saw last night? I think he was 0 for 8 in the first half, 0 for 10 in that game. Because to me, Culver's defense is good enough to justify him playing for sure. And he doesn't need to be a lights-out shooter, but there has to be a happy medium between what we saw against the Jazz and Clippers to say, you know what, you're playable for a substantial period of time during games.
I think the answer to your question is somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's fully fixed, but I don't think it's as broken as what we saw last year. I just think mechanically it looks a lot better than the shot he had last year. So you're right. He deserves playing time because the defense is above average. I mean, it's good, right? Like, he's an NBA defender. He's got that skill set right now. So, I mean, he can stick in the league for a long time, but I need to see more with the shot to be, 100% convinced it's totally fixed. But I don't think he's as bad a shooter as what we saw last night. He also missed a few shots at the rim. Not that they were great looks. They were contested shots at the rim. But I think as the year goes on, I think some of those shots will turn into fouls where he's absorbing a little bit more contact, maybe even initiating contact, but getting the whistle, where he ends up at the free throw line. That he can get to the free throw line more as the year goes on.